think we're good.
You think
Now we gotta wait on some people after some technical difficulties.
Wait, is it working? Let's see. Let's see what it's doing down there.
Let's check on the screen.
Showing we're live.
Yo, I got excited.
Oh, they just fell. So now wait.
So apparently I can't slap my hands down.
No, please don't slap your hands down. Okay, so I'm sure. Oh, there we go. Okay, so
You got it?
Yes, I'm gonna share this on my page. And all right.
Hey, Amanda.
Oh, it's Amanda. I don't have glasses, so I can't see whoever's there. Who's there? Say hey to whoever.
We have Amanda Bell.
Hey, Amanda. And it's funny, like, waiting on people to come in. Mm-hmm. You just feel like you don't know what to do. You just kind of sit here and just like, wait. It's on TJ Rumbler Consulting. Visit TJ.
We have Jackson, Donna.
Consulting.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, Amanda, we had some technical difficulties. Now we got it right.
What did he say?
Said at least you're right side up.
Right. We were like talking like this. Had to talk sideways.
And you're going to make sure you keep us on time check. Right?
Yes, I will set a timer and get us going. So if y'all hear a ding, it's my timer.
Okay. Well, I'm going to post this after the fact too, and I want to make sure that we get as much content covered as we can. I know I have you for a very short time.
I know.
So I'm going to get started.
Okay.
Welcome to those that you are already here. If you're watching this after the fact, we really appreciate you tuning in. This is the second of what are now called Village Chats through the lens of trying to look at this trauma-informed work as it takes a village to raise a child. If you don't know, my name's TJ Rumbler of TJ Rumbler Consulting. I have here with me, most importantly, my good friend.
Absolutely.
One of my best friends in the world, Jil Littlejohn. She was the former Mayor Pro Tem of Greenville City Council and the CEO of the Urban League of the Upstate. I'm currently working as the Director of Inclusion and Diversity for Hubble. So I'm honored to have her here in that role. I told her when she agreed to do this, it makes me grateful to realize when I'm looking for my friends to do things like this, what an amazing group of people that are in my circle. I feel like it makes me better because you sharpen me.
But you're amazing. So it's easy to have an amazing friend like you. So, it goes both ways.
So I'm going to say a few things that I'm going to get out of the way because she has a wealth of knowledge. As we talk about being trauma informed, I like to look at that through, kind of four things. One, we need to make sure that we realize trauma is real and it affects the way our life is and it impacts us. Two, we need to recognize the signs and symptoms. We're not going to really get into those a lot in this video. That's a little bit more of a clinical lens. But I want to be, the last two R's are to respond as a community by using that knowledge in our policies and our procedures, and also to resist re-traumatizing people who have been through those kinds of things. And it often happens through relationships and through community, so we also have the ability to heal that way.
Absolutely.
Right? So I want to kind of just throw this out there to you, and I want to make sure I ask this right. So as you think about anything that you see as far as like the kind of books you see in a library, to who owns our small businesses, to different types of political seats.
Yep.
Thinking about this, a community healing, why does representation matter?
So that's a really good question, right? So representation, and why does representation matters? I like to start off and tell people it's hard to be what you cannot see. And so it's really simple, right? If you can't see yourself being or doing something, it's hard to emulate that activity, right?
Okay.
So if you've never seen someone own a business, or you've never seen someone in a position of power, if you've never seen a teacher that looks like you, or if you've never seen someone that dresses in a way that you can see yourself in that person, then it's really hard to say, all right, I want you to walk a certain way, talk a certain way, dress a certain way, when everybody else around you is dressed completely differently. And that's just one example, right?
Okay.
And so that's the simplest way of putting it, right? That's why representation matters. And so I think about it. I tell people all the time, I grew up in Atlanta, and I grew up in a community where, most people were either pregnant or dead by the time they were 12 and 13. So it probably was 25 years old before I started watching the news again, because every time I watched the news, somebody was getting shot, somebody was getting locked up. And it was like, wow, I don't want to see that, because I know that's not who I want to be. And so if it wasn't for people in my life that tapped me on the shoulder and said, you don't have to be like everybody else. There's a better way. There's a better future for you. And so all you have to do is work hard, but also I'm going to provide a pathway while you're working hard to get there. Because a lot of times, when you talk about representation, people say, just work hard and do well. And then that ties into all type of systematic racist policies that prevent people from having that opportunity. And so representation matters on two fronts. One, for people that look like you to provide a pathway, but also for people who don't look like you to open up doors to allow you to walk through.
I just feel like I need to sit with that for a minute.
I was like, why are you looking at me like that?
If you don't know me, or if you have, this is the second video, but if you see me snapping, I'm not trying to tell my guests hurry up. I felt that in my soul, and there was a few times I think we've talked about this before, and I've thought about it as growing up as a straight white cis male, I can't imagine being in a more privileged position to see myself represented. So I've often wondered what that would be like. But you mentioned for somebody who's not in that position, but I like how you also said that gives somebody else, somebody like me, the opportunity to. Does that make
no? It totally does.
Stumbling over my
no.
words.
It's interesting. So I hope he's watching. He may not. We just reconnected maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But I had a teacher named Joe Feldman. And
hey, Mr. Feldman.
I know, I'm going to send it to you either way, right? So he's going to watch, even if he's not watching. But again, I was in an inner city high school. He was this white male teacher that came in who really had a heart and passion for his students. And I never forget, he took over a class that we were just bad. Yeah, there's no way around it. I think we forced the teacher to retire. It was horrible. And so he challenged us. And he was like, all right, here's the assignment. Now I want you to dig deeper. And I want you to come after school. And I want you to study on the weekends. I mean, it was the first time that a teacher really was like, okay, you can make an A, but not only can you make an A on 10th grade work, you can make an A on 11th grade work, on 12th grade work. You need to go to college. And he opened this door that I really hadn't thought about. And so I tell people a lot of times when I look at my life, he was the turning point. Now, my parents were loving and they had challenges and struggles. They loved me, but he provided something that they could not provide. And so we reconnected 5, 6 years ago. And it was literally, I think every essay I had going into college, I wrote about him. He left us. I think he went to Harvard or some kind of Ivy League school to get education policy. And now he's changing communities out in Oakland, California, writing policies for schools and school systems and training people all across the nation. But he walked the walk, right?
Yeah. Oakland's doing some, I believe in restorative practices as a system policy, and Oakland's leading the way. I wonder if he has anything to do with that.
I don't know for sure, right? Because I'm not a big woman.
Surprised, right?
I would not be surprised if you've probably read his work or seen some of the things he's done.
So I want to pick on, I'm not going to pick on you, but I want to make a point because I know what you mean. But when you said y'all were just bad, hold on. Because here's the thing, and this is what when I train a lot on resilience, we talk about changing our lens.
Absolutely.
And people push me on, I don't believe in bad kids. You were acting bad in the moment because you didn't have, in your word, you didn't have the door open to be good.
Absolutely.
What was his name?
Joe Feldman.
Mr. Feldman, thank you for opening the door. So we have this wealth of woman in our community now. So something that I thought about this maybe 30 minutes before I got to your house today. a lot of people, when we have the conversation around diversity and inclusion, they only think of it through the lens of white and black. Talk about that.
Wow. So there was a woman that came up with kind of a way to break down diversity and inclusion, right? And so diversity is being invited to the dance.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you have an invitation. Okay. You are invited to dance. Inclusion is being asked to dance, to join the party, right? So a lot of times diversity is the mix. It's black, it's white, it's LGBTQ, it's disabled. It's the individual physical features that people sometimes can see. But inclusion, it's one thing to have black and white and all these different things, but inclusion means that you're actually a part of what's happening. And so in my work that we do now, we don't lead with diversity because it's easy to check a box and say black and white. And so I always tell people, like, I am a black woman, but I do not speak for all black women, right? You can't, it's like, hey, Jill, tell us what all black women think. Like, no, we are different. We are not, all think the same things, like the same things. We're all different. And so you have to dig deeper. And so I always tell people diversity is great, right? Because we want to have different mixes at the table. But inclusion is we want those individuals to be a part of what's happening. And then I always tell people, I take it a step further. Equity is meaning that you're at the table, you're a part of the decision making, but you're also equitable across the board in terms of the ability to make those decisions, digging into pay in terms of what we're being paid, and the level of influence across the board. And so a lot of times people just like to check the box. Hey, we have black and white people, we have Hispanic, we have Latin, we have all these different things. But if they're just there and they're not being invited to dance, then what's the party? And I always tell people, my other flip side is that who made the playlist, right? You can invite me to the party, you can ask me to dance, but if it's not my jam, I don't want to hear it, right? So that's the simple ways that I like to break down kind of inclusion.
I don't want to go to a party where everybody looks like me. So anyway, what, and this may be too big of a question to dig into, but what do you find is the hardest part of having that conversation with people?
So it's really interesting. The hardest part of that conversation is people feel like in order to add diversity and inclusion, you're taking something away from them, right? And so a lot of times people say, well, if we give XYZ this, then what does that mean for me? What does that mean? How does that take away from me? Does that mean that now, if you want to add diversity and inclusion, say to a corporation as a white male, does that mean I'm not going to get a promotion again? And we're like, no, that's not what that means. What I always like to tell people in the work that I do is it's about having the most qualified person for whatever position, but making sure that that pool is diverse. Okay. Because the qualified person is going to rise to the top if all the policies are equitable. So that's the biggest piece. People are scared. And that can go, I remember, gosh, a few years back when the immigration policy was like at the height. And I remember talking to family members and they made some really prejudice type comments about immigrants coming into this country. And they were like, well, now that means I'm not going to have a job. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. One, you're not going to even do the job that we're talking about, right? Yeah. But two, people are fearful of what's being taken away from them. And I think that goes across every line, race, gender, and socioeconomic status, because even at the lowest of the low, there's typically somebody even lower than you, right? And so you're afraid that if they come up, that you're not going to be able to rise to the top.
I wish I could dig into that. Oh, I wish I could dig into that, because that's a fascinating cycle. So, like, what do you say to somebody who is in a position of power and they're like, there's a part of me that wants to do this work, but whether they say this openly to you or not, but that's like, I'm scared of giving up something in the process.
So again, if it was easy, it'd already be done. Right. So that's the first thing. But I think you unfortunately, sometimes for me, making a switch from nonprofit into corporate America is a lot of times in nonprofit, we focus on the heart. Right? Yeah. We focus on the heart, what's good, we do. What feels good, what makes sense. Let's all get along, kumbaya. In corporate America, a lot, I'm having to focus on how does it make financial sense, right? Okay. Everybody always talks about black and white, but green is what pushes people through. And there's research that shows that diverse and inclusive teams outperform homogeneous teams in any setting, right? So you put everybody together that's all the same, they're going to continue to do the same types of things, whether it's all the same types of engineers or all the same types of whatever. But if you put people together from different backgrounds, I mean, take Nike, for example, right? Yeah. If Nike would have started off and like now they make hijabs from Nike, right? Who would have ever thought about that? So, the research shows that diverse, inclusive teams outperform. So when you're having to deal with people that may not get it from the heart level, take it to the economic side.
Do you find that gives you a lot better in on the corporate side, especially?
With certain people, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. You got Miss Edie who says, "Good point, Jill. Well said."
Hey.
Miss Rosado says that was good. No, she said that was good.
You got to put the emphasis on it, or as the young kids say, that was good.
Oh, one of my Miss Bosma, I appreciate. As we were talking earlier about former professors, Lynn Bosma, she was a professor of mine back in the day, when I was doing my master's in social work.
Aww.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my God, a lot of people that I highly respect are logging on. Okay, I'm gonna get off topic, y'all. We have her for about maybe 10 more minutes. So
11.
If you have a question, I need you to throw it on the comments. If not, we can talk. This is something that's near and dear to my heart because I serve the kiddos.
Yeah.
That's my babies. That's my jam. Today is a special day, as you know. Today marks 50 years since the integration of Greenville County Schools. And maybe you may pull more from your experience with the Urban League, but you've had a lot of experience working with our students. I'm interested, do you see any huge victories that we could speak of, and or where's the work? Where's the work that still got to be done? Yeah.
So it's a really interesting point. I listened to your show, I guess it was last week, I can't remember, with Dr. Anderson. There are pros and cons to both. And it's very interesting because I remember being, fresh out of college, and somebody made this point that segregation was the worst thing that ever happened to the African American community. And I was like, what?
I know, right?
Are you crazy? No, I have friends from all these different places and, XYZ. And it goes back to what we started off this conversation with about representation. Right. And so I think that there were certain things that were lost with segregation or desegregation. You lost the ability to be in a community, to have, the doctor. It's funny. So I live in Nickeltown and we're in my community. And if you go right around the backside, I remember when I first moved to the area, they was like, yeah, Dr. Gandy used to live right here in this house. And, Miss Norris lives right here. And Senator Anderson lives right here. Yeah. And you could literally walk this community and see the pillars of this community right here in the neighborhood. Right. And over time, that has changed. Yeah. Now, was desegregation a great thing? I think so, right? Because I think that, we were able to have access to the same types of materials, and over time, it has definitely gotten better, but I think we've lost a bit of it. And so we need to work towards having that representation in the classrooms so that no matter if, as a white male student, you should be able to see a black male teacher. Yep. And we don't really see that. So if for desegregation to really be effective, or what I would think that, some of the civil rights leaders were expecting, were that you were to have a real great blend, a mix of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I can't say that that's really what's happening today.
Well, one of the things I always tell people, when you're working with somebody who may be exhibiting some kind of behavior, and I'm not making a comparison to negative behavior with having integrated school or segregated schools, but don't take away something without, putting something better in place. And it's we took away that, but totally just ignored the fact that representation places at the table needed to remain.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it, 50 years ago, there were certain teachers, and shout out to the Greenville News, because they're doing, Catrice Hardy, I'm going to send this to you too, who
great series so far.
Is also an African American female that leads the Greenville News, and they have done a great job of highlighting individuals and pointing out the pros and the cons. And so I think, if we would have made sure that those teachers that left those all black schools had a way in to the desegregated high schools or middle schools or, whatever, I don't think that was necessarily the case. Right. And so it has pros and cons, but I think that's why we're here, right?
It is.
We have to continue the work. The work doesn't stop.
No, it does not. How much time we have left, Ms. Littlejohn? We got about 8 minutes. So I guess, one thing when I have conversations where I do training, people always like, especially people, the good-hearted people that actually took the time to log into this video. So far we've talked about systemic things,
right,
organizational, generational, the kind of things that are not, even with the best intentions, they're not going to be solved tomorrow.
Right.
If I'm watching this video tonight, what is something that I, no matter if I'm a white man, a Hispanic female, whatever,
right,
can do tomorrow to better move the needle towards a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable society? What is something I can do in my life?
Absolutely. So I always tell people that inclusion begins with I, right?
Okay.
So it always starts with you as an individual decision in terms of how you're going to make things better. And that's on the corporate level, the personal level, however.
Okay.
And so I always tell people, take a look at your immediate circle, right? Look at the people that you talk to on an everyday basis.
Okay.
Take a look at your Facebook friends, take a look at the last 5-10 people you text, okay, and see if you guys are all alike, right? Unfortunately, we all fall into this category, right? For the most part. Except for you, I text you, you're not like me. But we all fall into this category. We're all guilty, right?
Yes.
And so I always tell people something simple that you could do tomorrow when you go to work, when you're walking out in the street, whatever it is, say hello to somebody that you've never spoke to before. Random stranger, if you're at work, maybe say hello to somebody that you sit next to every day, but you really don't talk to them, or you see them around, but you haven't taken time. Ask them out for a cup of coffee. Gotcha. Say, Tiffany Santagati, a really good friend of ours, she is great at this. I mean, she goes overboard, but she's great at it. I mean, Tiffany will have lunch, coffee, whatever, with just like anybody she meets, and she's like, I just want to get to know them. I mean, at the core of her heart, like, that's who she is, and I admire that. And sometimes I challenge myself to do that more, because I fall into that same circle as well. We all do. So if you're an individual person listening to this, just take a look at your list, right? Take a list of the last 5 people you called or text. Take a look at your frequent Facebook friends. Maybe there's somebody on there that you're friends with, but you don't interact with them that much, and just say hello. Somebody you work with or somebody you see on a frequent basis. Now, don't walk up to a complete stranger, right? Because you walk up to a complete stranger and say, can I take you to coffee? They're going to think a number of things, and they're not going to be thinking that you're trying to create unity, right?
You might catch a case.
You could catch a case, right? Next thing you know, now y'all calling me because y'all in trouble. Like, no, don't do that. But, ask somebody out to coffee that you don't know on that deep of a level. Something really simple.
Now, this is your area of expertise, but can I add a caveat to that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I'm speaking especially to people who look like me right now. I have a lot of work to do in this, as much as anybody, but if you take that step, listen. There's I don't even have to unpack that, but just like be intentional about listen to what the experience in this country is like for somebody who did not grow up like you.
Wow, that was good, TJ. That was really good. I've
learned a lot just by simply shutting up and listening. I really have, from you, from a lot of people.
Right. But I want to add some on to what you added on, right? Because I want to give TJ a shout out as well. Anybody that listens to him, if you're a personal friend, if you're thinking about having him come in and do a session and talk, he is one of the most authentic people that I know. And one of the things that he did, just because it's TJ, it's just like a TJ type thing. It's Black History Month, and I tell people, if you follow me on any type of social media, I say celebrate Black History 365 days, because the contributions of Black people in this country, or just all around, are innumerable. They go on for infinity, right? So we need more than a month, but that's a different soapbox. But what TJ did was said, hey, if you know a Black-owned business, send me that Black-owned business. And as a white male, you kind of created this culture, or this kind of list of all these companies, restaurants, even things that I didn't know as a Black female. I'm like, what? I was like, it's a Jamaican restaurant around the corner? Like, oh, okay. But again, he brought awareness to different things. And so I think, even if you don't want to ask somebody to coffee, right? Maybe you're an introvert, and so that's really not your jam. So if you can share a business, maybe you go and visit a minority owned business in the area, and you have a great experience, and you share that and you post that on your Facebook to your friends and say, hey, I just ate at the seafood spot. Shout out to the seafood spot. And the food was amazing. You guys should go and try this. So there are some different things that you can do that don't necessarily you don't have to necessarily interact, although I want you to. But if you want to have a very first step, and that's too intimidating for you, then try going to a place that you don't normally go to and sharing that experience with your circle of friends to help them expand.
I'm telling you, shout out to the Flying Biscuit. I've been there 3 times since that. Oh my
God. I heard it's so good.
Look, yes, it is so good. And Tasties, and always shout out to OJ's. There's so many hidden gems. Some that I already knew about and some that I found through that. So.
Well, and so TJ is like the king of like these different types of Hispanic restaurants. Taco Mas or something, I think you were posting about.
I can't tell y'all about all of them because then I'm going to have lines at my favorite spot.
No, They need the money. You cannot hold out. Share the wealth. You know, I like to eat, share the wealth. I don't cook. Send me to these different places because I'm like, I never thought about that. So I think you just do a really good job of expanding outside of the ordinary. So,
well, one thing I always tell people when they give me a compliment: 1, thank you, and 2, it's not I, it's we. Aww. And that brings us back full circle to like we are a village. Yep. And it takes all of us to do this work. For everybody that's logged in or that is watching this after the fact, thank you for being a part of this village. I hope you will take something that Jill said and put it to work in your life tomorrow to help empower us all, because we are better together. That is one thing that I know for a fact. Any closing words?
Shout out to my cousin Donna. I see you on there. I just wanted to say hello, and Amanda. But closing words, everybody. We did not get into this situation. Those that have trauma in their life, it didn't happen immediately. Typically, it's something that happened over a period of time. Yeah. So as you're working to work in a trauma-informed lens on the work that you do, and in just your interactions on a daily basis as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, small steps still count, right? So you don't have to go out and run for president. Although, I'm just saying anybody could jump in. But anyway, no, not me. No. They let anybody in the White House. But anyway, I digress. So just take those small steps each day and work on it. Be intentional. Right? Yeah. Don't listen to these conversations and then go about your daily business, and then you listen to it again next week and go about your daily business. But, make an action plan and say, here's one thing that I want to commit to doing over the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And then from there, create a different activity and work on that for the next 30, 60, 90 days.
All right. Y'all, that's our time. I'm going to let Jill go to her next event. But thank you all. Love y'all. Let's do the work. Be great. Good night.
Good night.